Essentially. Kyren. Engage. Fights, they ain't gon' grind like this. They ain't gon' push like this. They ain't gon' fight like this. They ain't gon' move like this. They ain't gon' build like this. They ain't gon' think like this. Nope. They ain't gon' fight like this. They ain't gon' push like this. They ain't gon' shine like this. They ain't gon' drip like this. They ain't gon' push like this. They ain't gon' move like this. They ain't gon' fight like this. No sir. They ain't gon' fight like this. They ain't gon' fight like this. They ain't gon' fight like this. No lie, I see no competition. From their eyes I see they fear the vision. No weapon, crush the opposition. Diamonds dancing, moving like they really. Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful people of the world, welcome to another episode of Board Talk. My name is Kyren Monteiro, Frequency Canvas, man. Round of applause. Round of applause, man. I want to thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of Board Talk. Make sure that y'all go back and listen to the first episode of Board Talk, the 6 steps of record production featuring D-Time, a 4 a.m. sound. It was a very, very great episode, and I want to thank him once again for coming on. This episode, we're going to do some business talk, and we're going to call this episode Beyond the LLC, right? Once again, we're going to call this episode number 2 of Board Talk, Beyond the LLC. Now, I think in the last 2 years, since the pandemic, I should say, I have seen more businesses be started, more startup businesses be started than I've ever seen in my life, especially within the age groups of, at that time, who was 18 all the way up to maybe 50. Man, it just seems like from real young to middle age, it's like a lot of businesses have been started. So what is a LLC? A LLC is a limited liability company. It is a business entity type that you register within the state that you live in when it comes time for you to start a business. There's different type of businesses that you can form. You can form corporations. You can form limited liability companies. You can be sole proprietors. You can have limited liability partnerships, which is LLP. You can have, partnerships. It's different kind of entity types that you can have. But limited liability companies, aka LLCs, have been very popular. They were, and honestly, they're a very new form of business entity type. They have been around since the late 1970s. So I was born in 1990, so they're only 20-something years older than me. Versus corporations have been around for hundreds of years. That kind of business format. Laws may have changed, but depending on the state that you live in, but in general, they have been around for a long time. So as a creative entrepreneur, I see a lot of people starting up businesses, or maybe you're ready to start up a business as a creative entrepreneur. And when I say creative entrepreneurs, I'm talking about people like audio engineers. I'm talking about music producers, recording artists, songwriters, podcasters, videographers, photographers, different content creators. Maybe you want to start up a record label, whatever it may be, you're ready to make that step. And for a lot of people, they think all you have to do is go to the Secretary of State, set up your LLC, register your LLC with the state, then you'll get something called Articles of Organization and your Certificate of Organization. That's your official state documents that says, hey, you're a real company. Then you go over to the IRS website, get you an EIN, which is an employer identification number, or a tax ID. This is basically the social security number of your business. And then people think that they're ready to that they're ready to roll. But there is much more that comes beyond starting the LLC. So that's what we want to dive into. So right now I have 12 different tips that I want to dive into. I want to get through these as quick as we can, but I do want to spend enough time so that people are educated. And man, I love entrepreneurship. I'm not only passionate about music and audio production and different creative avenues that people can express themselves, but I'm also very passionate about business itself, entrepreneurships. I love seeing people start up things from the ground and manifest them into reality, or take something that may already exist to a higher level and take risk. I love seeing that at the end of the day. Now, I will say business isn't for everybody. I do think as many people who are capable should do it, even if it's just part-time, but business isn't for everybody. So let's before we dive into this 12, let's get into this real quick. The reason that you want to start a limited liability company, aka a LLC, is for the first two words of that, limited liability. Prior to the late 1970s, the only way that you can have a business entity that was separate from the owners was to be incorporated. But a lot of people don't want to be incorporated, because if you're incorporated, unless you're an S corp, which means as a business owner you put yourself on a salary as an employee of the company, then you would be double taxed, right? So the business would be double taxed, and then the business would be taxed, and then the owners would be taxed. So that's why that double taxation automatically comes with a default on corporations, once again, unless you're an S corp. So the dope thing about LLCs is like they're kind of this hybrid business entity of a corporation and of a sole proprietor. What does that mean? That means that you have legal separation as a business owner from your business. So you have separate assets, you have separate liability protection. All of this stuff can be covered under the LLC. The LLC is its own breathing, living entity in the eyes of your state, in the eyes of the government, IRS, etc., right? But just going to the Secretary of State in whatever state that you live in is not enough. You need to do more things. So step one, you need to go to the Secretary of State and form the LLC. If you don't know how to do these things, either go to a lawyer, or there are different things like LegalZoom and different services that you can take advantage of. So that's step one, right? Obviously, you need to go form the LLC, right? Step number two is to go get an EIN, right? That's your employer identification number. Even if you're not going to have employees under your business, it's still a good idea, because most banks are going to require you to have an employer identification number, aka an EIN. So obviously the first two steps, I'm assuming that you've either done that already or you're about to go do it. Step number three, there's something called an operating agreement, right? And so once again, as a limited liability company, aka a LLC, it's our responsibility to follow the same corporate formalities as if we were incorporated. So if you were a corporation, what you would have to do is it would be mandatory that you have corporate bylaws, and it would be necessary also for you to have a shareholders agreement, right? Now, a shareholder is another word for an owner of a business in a corporation, right? So in an LLC, it's very similar, right? So in an LLC, a owner is called a member, right? So what an operating agreement is, it's an internal governing document between the member or the members who own the business and between the business itself, right? So it's very important that you have this document, because this document is going to identify who owns what percentage of the business. What happens if one of the owners files bankruptcy? What happens if somebody gets a divorce or wants to get out of the business? How you run the business, the operations of it. This document is going to cover everything, right? So what this operating agreement essentially is your corporate bylaws and your shareholders agreement all in one document. Now, only 5 states require that you have an operating agreement. But the problem is, if you don't have one in a lawsuit, they can do something called piercing the corporate veil. And that's where a judge can look and say, you know what? Hey, Mr. Hey, Mrs. Even though you have a separate company outside of you that exists in the eyes of the law, you're not running it as its own breathing thing, right? It's basically the same thing as you. There's no separation between you and your business. And then you become liable personally in that lawsuit. So you want to operate an agreement for several things, man. Go do your research on what an operating agreement is. Once again, it's best to get a lawyer to do it, but you can go to LegalZoom and different businesses like that to get that done. Step 4 is you want to have a business checking account, right? And I know some people may be like, well, duh, Kyren, obviously you want to have a business checking account. But, and I've been guilty of this in the past, it's very important, once again, that you have separate assets, separate liability, separate transactions, separate everything from the business. That's the whole point of you starting an LLC, is to have something that exists outside of you. As a business owner, as a member of the LLC, you want your business to be separate from your personal life, from your personal assets, from your personal account, from your personal expenses. You want to have a clear line in the sand that says, hey, here's my business over here, and then here's me as a person, right? So make sure that you get a business checking account, and you want to make sure that you don't mix things. You don't want to commingle funds. You don't want to have your personal expenses coming out of your business account. You don't want to have your business expenses coming out of your personal account. So make sure that you go set up a business checking account at a bank in your area. It's not that hard. You will have to bring in your state documents. You're going to have to bring in your EIN paperwork from the IRS, and they're probably going to want to see an operating agreement as well, especially if there's more than one owner of the business. Step 5, business insurance, right? Once again, this whole idea of having a separate business is having separate liability. So several things. If you are in a lawsuit, your business insurance, your liability insurance is going to be your first line of defense to pick your policy up, right? So you want to be able to have that. Also, if you have any kind of assets within your business, right, you want to have that stuff covered, especially in the kind of industries that we're doing. Say if you are, you own a recording studio, that's thousands of dollars worth of equipment, rather, in your office space, rather it's in a commercial building or it's in your house. You want that stuff covered, just in case some damage happens. If you are in a commercial space and damage happens to your building, right, you want that kind of stuff to be covered at the end of the day. So business insurance is very important, especially in lawsuits, right? Because you don't know what happened. People can come for you, and you want to make sure that you're covered. So the LLC itself, it does give you that corporate veil. It does give you that separation, but it's not going to just pay for a lawsuit. So business insurance is very important for lawsuits, for to cover assets of the business, to cover the building your business may exist in, for damages. And there's other things that liability insurance for your business offers. So make sure that you get some liability insurance. All right. Very, very important. Number 6, bouncing off of that, you want to make sure that you have some permits and licenses. Depending on the kind of business that you're running, depending on if you have employees or if you're selling certain kind of things, you might have to have a seller's permit or sales tax. If you are having employees on payroll and you're withholding taxes as a business, you have to have licenses for that. So whatever local, state, federal, I may not be saying that all the way right, but whatever permits and licenses you need to run your business, you want to make sure that you do that, right? That's step 6. Number 7, you want to make sure that you have contracts and agreements in place, especially in these fields of creative entrepreneurship. You can be dealing with intellectual property. So who owns what, right? So if you're a music producer and you're offering your services to different recording artists, songwriters, different TV shows or whatever, you need to have contracts that clearly define what it is and what it isn't. That's going to be very important. If not, there's going to be a headache fighting that battle in court, right? And contracts come in different shapes and sizes. They can simply be terms and services and privacy policies on websites. They can be via email. They can be something where you're sending over a DocuSign or some kind of document where people got to digitally sign. It can be in person. Like, there's different formats and different ways that a contract can be legally binding. But you want to make sure that you have those contracts and agreements in place. It's very, very important. If you're selling services as an audio engineer, you want to make sure that you have those things. And any other kind of business, whether you're a creative entrepreneur or not, you want to make sure that you have that stuff. Number 8, you want to make sure that you keep up with your state filings. Some are annual, some are every other year, but I'm in the state of Indiana, so every so often as an LLC, you're required to do what's called a business entity report. So you pay a small fee and you just let the state of Indiana know, hey, as a business, I'm still active. Here's my address. The registered agent of the business is up to date. You want to make sure that you keep up with those stuff, because you don't want to have an administrative dissolution because you didn't file a business entity report, and then you might get some fees, some late fees, or some kind of fines or something like that. So make sure that you keep up with your state filings. Check in your state the rules with that. And just make sure that you keep up with it. Most states, like the state of Indiana, they send out stuff in the mail. They send email notifications. So if you stay on top of your game, you definitely know that's coming up. So make sure that you keep up with your state filings. Number 9, accounting and bookkeeping. Now, I've been guilty of this. You want to make sure that you're staying on top of this, so that when you go to file taxes, that is easy for your accountant, or if you're doing it yourself, whoever is doing it, you want to make it as easy as possible, right? You don't want to make it a headache. And if you get audited by the IRS, you want to be able to have everything flow together, right? So with your accounting and bookkeeping, you want to make sure that you stay on top of those things, and you want to use something that keeps you organized. Some people use an Excel sheet. Man, that's way too much for me. It's already hard enough running a business by yourself or with a extremely small team. So I would recommend something like QuickBooks, right? Because you can run it on a computer, laptop. You can use an iPad. You can use your phone. You can track your mileage. You can invoice from it. You can do payroll from it. You can pay business expenses from it. You can do a lot of things. You can essentially kind of manage your business kind of in a central place, literally from your phone, if you want to. And so that's very important. So make sure that your accounting and your bookkeeping for your business, make sure you stay on top of that stuff, because it can catch up with you. I'm telling you from experience, you want to stay on that stuff, and you don't want to be sloppy or lazy. Be honest. do stuff out of integrity, stay on that kind of stuff. Number 10, right behind accounting and bookkeeping, is billing and invoicing. If you are running a legitimate business, your clients or your customers, they should be getting billed from the business, right? And if you're offering services, more than likely you want to be sending an invoice to your clients or to your customers so that they can pay for those services. One is very professional, right? If you are running a separate entity outside of yourself, which is an LLC, then your business needs to have a way to where you are billing and invoicing your clients. And the benefits of that is it keeps things organized. It gives them a record of receipt or receipts, right? So they get to keep track of how much they're spending with your business, right? For their tax purposes. It also keeps you organized for your accounting and bookkeeping. And if you're using something like PayPal to invoice, then you can link it with QuickBooks. Or if you're using QuickBooks to invoice, then you have it right there. Or if you're using something like Square or whatever, it just makes it real easy to stay organized at the end of the day. So you want to make sure that you send an invoice for record keeping for multiple things, for your to keep track of your business revenue. And it also helps clients keep track of their business expenses and where their money is going, and having records of payment. That's very, very important. It's professional, helps keep you organized. And it's just the safe way to do things. So make sure that you have billing and invoicing in place for your business. Number 11, you want to have meeting minutes or minutes of meeting, however people want to say it. Rather you're the only business owner or there's several of you. You want to have whether it's annually, weekly, quarterly, once a month, you want to hold a meeting with the owners. And even if it's by yourself, I know it sounds stupid, but have a meeting with yourself, and you want to have documents where you are keeping track of what is being discussed within these meetings as owners of the business, right? And signing off on that. Because the whole idea is, once again, if you're ever in a lawsuit, you're showing the judge, hey, I am running a real company. I am running a real business that is separate from me. This is not me. This is a real business. This is a real company at the end of the day. So, holding these kind of meetings with yourself as a business owner or with your business partners who own the business with you, this is once again that same kind of corporate formality that's really important at the end of the day. So I really, really stress that you do these. Number 12, and then I'm out your hair. I think one of the biggest things that I had to learn is working on your business versus working in your business. And that's very important because I'll take my company, Frequency Canvas, for example. I'm a professional audio engineer, right? So if I'm in the studio doing work for clients, that's me working for my business. But as the CEO and president of Frequency Canvas, I need to take out time to work on my business. I need to take time to do those things that CEOs and presidents and whatever other hats do to keep the business running at the end of the day. All of my time can't be dedicated working in the business. I can't spend all of my time just working in the studio, right? Or going out in the field and doing this or doing that. Yes, I have to have time while I'm an employee of the business, but at the same time, I have to have time while I'm a CEO and a president and a business owner of the business who leads and who runs the business at the end of the day. So you have to have times where you separate your email and doing your marketing and putting attention on sales and keeping up with your books and sending out invoicing and billing clients. You have to do these things in your business. You can't just work for your business all the time. So make sure that you set dedicated time where you go in and you fulfill your duties as a CEO and as a president of your company. Because if not, your business is just gonna suffer, and you're gonna be drowning. So you wanna stay on top of things at the end of the day. So I know that I didn't spend a ton of time within these subjects. I really wanted to keep this around 30 minutes or under 30 minutes, because this is a conversation where it can go on for a long time, and I want to keep you guys' attention. So once again, I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. This is the second episode of the Board Talk podcast, where we discuss all things audio production. And once again, go beyond the LLC. Just because you register with the state and just because you got your EIN from the IRS that's the easy stuff. That's the easiest thing that you're going to do at the end of the day. So we want to be operating real business that's bringing in revenue, and that we're working on, that we're developing, that we're scaling, and that we're growing at the end of the day. And I promise you, and these are just surface level things. I'm going to add a bonus tip real quick. My bonus tip would be stay learning and stay growing, right? Always be learning. Try to put yourself around business mentors, around people who know more than you. Don't be the smartest person in the room. Get around some people who is more successful. Get around some people that's already at levels where you want to be at. Pick their brain. And they don't have to be in the same industry as you. They can be different. Get around some people who know business, who'll keep it real with you. I have those mentors and those big brothers and sisters in my life and fellow peers and stuff. And you got to be real with them, and you got to hold yourself accountable. But stay growing, stay learning at the end of the day, because these 12 steps, it's surface stuff. Business comes with so much stuff. It's not for everybody. So I just want to encourage you, go beyond the LLC. Just registering with the Secretary of State and getting your EIN from the IRS is not enough. Your job is far from done. That stuff is super easy. It doesn't make you a legitimate business in the sense of operating as one. So make sure that you stay on top of your game. Much love. This is Kyren Monteiro. Make sure that y'all visit frequencycanvas.com. Go follow Board Talk on different platforms, like subscribe to and like our podcast, download it, spread it on social media, and hopefully you guys are getting something out of this, because we're really doing this to really add value back to the community. So all of my creative entrepreneurs, stay creative. Shout out to just anybody doing something dope, positive, and that's adding value to the world. All right. Thank y'all.